Hi, and welcome to my tutorial on how to make a simple crochet daisy. This pattern's easy to modify. You can use it to make a bag charm or a hair tie, anything like that. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to show you how to make an individual flower. To make your daisy, you're going to need a crochet hook. I used a 1.3mm hook, some stitch markers, a yarn needle, a hot glue gun, some scissors, some wire cutters, and some pliers. The pliers just make it easier to bend the wire. You're also going to need a few different kinds of wire. I use 22 gauge stem wire and 30 gauge wire for the petals and 26 gauge green wire for the leaves. You'll also need yarn in whatever colors you want for your flower. Here I use yellow for the center, green for the leaves, and white for the petals. We're going to start with making the center, so you're going to need scissors, your crochet hook, and 2 stitch markers. Start with a magic ring, and then put 6 single crochets into that magic ring. And that's that 6th single crochet. Go ahead and pull your magic ring tight. And then next what we're going to do is increase 6 times. So we'll end up with 12 more single crochets around. And that was the 12th single crochet, and now what we're going to do is work in the back loops only. And here what we're going to do is 2 single crochet, 1 decrease, and we're going to do that 3 times. Now you're also going to add a stitch marker on that first exposed front loop, and then you'll also do that on your last stitch. Stitch markers are helpful for figuring out where you're going to start and end the texture that we add to the center. And that was the last decrease for that round. And you'll see that we'll put a stitch marker in that last loop. For the last round, we're going to just do 9 single crochet in the back loops. And that was the 9th single crochet, so go ahead and cut your yarn and leave a little bit of a tail so that we can close the center later on. Now we're going to start adding that center texture. We're going to start in that first exposed loop where you put that stitch marker. Go ahead and put a slip knot into your center colored yarn. And what you'll do is pull that slip knot through that exposed stitch. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and chain 2 and then slip stitch back into that same front loop. You're going to repeat that process for all of those exposed front loops up until that last stitch marker. So you should have 12 total of these little ridges. It's just a slip stitch, chain 2, slip stitch back into that same front loop, and just keep going around. Now your 12th ridge is going to be where you place that last stitch marker. Go ahead and do your slip stitch in that stitch, chain 2, slip stitch back into the same front loop, and then to finish it off, just slip stitch into the front loop of that very first ridge. Now you can cut your yarn, and then you can either weave in that tail now or later, it really doesn't matter. And this is what your finished center should look like. Now we're going to go ahead and start working on the petals, so grab whatever color you're going to use for your petals. The petals are worked around the center in the exposed front loops from round 4 of the center. In the second round, you're going to go ahead and crochet around one long piece of wire to give your project some stability. Now we start the petals similarly to the texture on the center. It's essentially the same idea, we're just adding a lot bigger texture around that center. So put a slip knot in your yarn color that you're going to be using for the petals, and then go ahead and pull that yarn through the front loop that's exposed immediately following your last center ridge. Now go ahead and chain 5. And then in the stitch second from your hook, put a single crochet increase. So that's just 2 single crochets in that same chain. And then 3 single crochet down the rest of the chains. So you should end up with 4 chain on one side and then 5 single crochets on the other. The extra single crochet at the top will be the midpoint of the petal. If you find it helpful, you can place a stitch marker there. Now slip stitch into the next stitch on the center. And then repeat what we just did. So it's a chain 5. And then in the second chain from your hook, put an increase. And you can place a stitch marker on that midpoint stitch if you find it helpful. And then 3 single crochet down those remaining 3 chains. And then again, slip stitch into your next stitch, and then repeat this whole process 7 more times, so you should have 9 of those petals started. Once you finish your 9th petal, go ahead and put a last slip stitch into that first front loop that you used to make your first petal. For your final round of around the petals, you're going to need that really thin 30 gauge wire. I just unravel it. I don't bother cutting it until I finish all of the petals. So when you add that wire, all you're going to do is crochet over it while you do your stitches. So I just go ahead and add that in, and I'm going to start with 2 single crochet on those first couple chain. And then 1 half double crochet, a half double crochet increase, so at this point you should have 2 single crochet, a half double crochet, and a half double crochet increase. Now replace that stitch marker in that midpoint stitch, add 3 half double crochet. Now the other side of your petal is going to be a reflection of what we did on the other side. So it'll be a half double crochet increase, then a half double crochet, followed by 2 single crochet. And this is what your finished first petal should look like. Now you're going to slip stitch into the actual loop on the center of the flower. You see I'm kind of pointing to it with my hook. You're going to go ahead and slip stitch, like I said, through that loop on the center. Once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and continue on by repeating what you did with the first petal. That's that 2 single crochet, a half double crochet, and then a half double crochet increase. And to repeat, you should have 2 single crochet, a half double crochet, and then a half double crochet increase. And in that midpoint stitch, we're going to go ahead and add that 3 half double crochet. Be careful not to accidentally drop your wire somewhere along the way. It's really easy to do, but make sure you're carrying that with you the whole way around your petals. Once you finish those 3 half double crochets in that midpoint stitch, again we're going to reflect what we did on the other side. So that half double crochet increase, a half double crochet, 2 single crochets, and then slip stitch into that front loop of the center. Once you've finished all 9 petals, go ahead and cut your yarn and also cut your wire. Now this is what it should look like after you finish the center and the petals. Now go ahead and tuck in that extra bit of wire. So I'll use the pliers to kind of help me shape it and then tuck it into the center. You can see here I'm just kind of tucking it in and then pulling it all the way through. And then I will use those pliers again to kind of wrap it around and tuck it into that open bit of center. And you can kind of smash it flat with those pliers as well. I'm going to go ahead and use my yarn needle to weave in all of those ends. So if you haven't done it yet, go ahead and take your yarn needle, thread through that center piece of tail, and then I just shove it on in through and then pop it out the middle of my flower. So the front looks all nice and finished, and for the back you're going to do the same thing with that tail from the petals. Thread it through your yarn needle and then tuck it into the center and pull it through. You can tie off those ends or weave them in, cut them, whatever you feel works best for you. I don't worry too much about securing it a lot because we will be adding some hot glue to the center and it should stay secure. And this is what the back side of your flower should look like and the front side at this stage. Now we're going to start working on the stamen, so grab your green yarn and put 6 single crochet in a magic ring. And that was the last single crochet. So for the next round we are going to do 6 increases, so you'll end up with 12 single crochet in this round. Now for the next round, you're just going to do 12 single crochet all the way around. And that was the last single crochet. And at this point, this is what your stamen should look like. For the next round, it's going to be really similar to when we did the texture on the center. So start with a slip stitch, chain 2, and then slip stitch back into the same stitch. So you're going to do this 12 times and you'll end up with 12 ridges. So again, it's just a slip stitch, chain 2, slip stitch into the same stitch, slip stitch into the next, and repeat all the way around. And that was the last little ridge we needed to make. Go ahead and count, make sure that you have 12 little ridges on your stamen, and then cut your yarn. Don't have to weave in the end, I like to just glue it in when we get to assembly. The last piece that we have to crochet is a leaf. So you're going to grab whatever wire you chose to use for the leaf, and you're going to cut a piece that's about 4 inches long. I like to make 2 leaves, so I'm going to have 2 pieces of wire that are 4 inches long. First, put a slip knot on your green yarn and then chain 11. Now in the second chain from the hook, go ahead and put a single crochet, followed by 3 half double crochet. Next is 2 double crochet. And then 3 half double crochet. And then 3 single crochet in the last chain. Now you're going to continue on to the other side of the chain. We're just going to reflect what we did on the other side. So it'll be 3 half double crochet, two double crochet, three half double crochet, And in the last chain, do a single crochet increase. And this is what your leaf should look like at this point. For the last round, we're going to add that wire. And again, you're just going to crochet over it, just like we did with the petals. To start, do 3 single crochet. Followed by 4 half double crochet, I like to bend the wire around to just kind of get it out of the way, and then we will do 3 single crochet, and that should bring us to the middle of our leaf, or the top of the leaf. And in that top or midpoint stitch, go ahead and put 3 single crochet. Continuing on, again, we'll reflect what we did on the other side with 3 single crochet, four half double crochet, three single crochet, and slip stitch into the last stitch. For this last one, I like to just kind of wrap my yarn around both pieces of wire, or both ends of the wire. And you can go ahead and cut that yarn. You don't need to leave a long tail, just long enough so that that last stitch doesn't come out. And you can shape your leaf how you want it to look. Make sure it's not too scrunched or too stretched. And that's what your final leaf should look like. Now we're moving on to assembly, so grab all your crocheted pieces and a piece of stem wire, cut it to whatever length you want, then take some pliers, form a loop, and then flatten that loop. Now put a little bit of hot glue on your loop, and then insert it into the open hole in the back of your center. Wait for that glue to harden a little bit, and then grab a yarn needle, thread the tail from your center through, and now we're going to close the back by weaving our tail through all of the loops on the back of the center. Close the hole tightly by pulling on the tail. Don't remove the yarn needle yet, we're going to use it to thread the tail through the stamen. So put your stem wire through the magic ring hole in your stamen, and also thread through the tail through that magic ring as well. Pull it up towards your flower and go ahead and tuck in that extra tail from the stamen, and we're going to hot glue the stamen to your flower. Again, hot glue all the way around so that it adheres nicely to your flower. Now go ahead and cut the tail from your center, and we're going to start wrapping the stem with green thread. So hold it together and then start wrapping all the way around. Make sure that you keep it tight so it doesn't come loose. If it makes you feel a little bit better, you can secure it with a little bit of glue. Once you get about halfway down your stem or wherever you want to place your leaf or leaves, go ahead and stop, place the leaf, and then continue wrapping around not only the stem, but the ends of the wire and the tail from your leaf, or again, leaves. We'll see that we'll give it one wrap, and then I will add that second leaf so they're kind of sitting right next to each other. I think it looks cute, but you can arrange your leaves however you want. I'll keep wrapping until you get about a centimeter or so away from the end. What we'll do is add some hot glue to the end of your wire and then wrap over that glue. It should secure that thread in place. Now cut your thread, and I like to just add a little bit more glue to that end to give it a finished look. Now the last thing that you'll do is arrange your petals, arrange your leaves in whatever form you want. So I like to kind of open up the leaves, make sure that the petals are laying nice and flat. Now for final touches, I like to go to the thrift store, pick up a container of some sort to put my flowers in. You can add some final touches like a crochet heart. If you guys would like to see a tutorial on that, leave me a comment below. And this flower pattern is a part of a full arrangement pattern that I'll have available on my Etsy. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and I'll announce when that pattern is released. Thanks for crocheting with me today. I hope that you really like your end result. If you post on social media, be sure to tag me at Tina Paints.